الحمد لله.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, everyone. I'm joined with the amazing Hannah. She is absolutely incredible. I follow her on, I think, all of her social medias, and I've been following her for a while. So make sure you definitely follow her.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me. My name is Hannah, and I'm really looking forward to connecting and talking with you today. It's always nice to meet other converts and reverts and just like connect. And it's nice to know that there's such a big revert community all around the world. And it's just nice to be able to support each other and discuss our different experiences because we go through so many similar things. So it's just always nice to be able to connect.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. I love hearing other sisters' stories because there's so many things that come up and I just want to interrupt and be like, that happened to me too, but I have to
Yeah.
keep quiet. Okay, so Hannah, I want to know, were you following any religions before you became Muslim?
Yeah, so I actually grew up Catholic. So my family was pretty religious, especially my parents. They really like wanted us to be, practicing Catholics growing up. So it was like a big part of my upbringing and my identity. But as I got older, I kind of pushed away from it a little bit because there were a lot of things that I just struggled with believing in the faith. But I think, if anything, being Catholic gave me a really good foundation to believe in God and just to follow a faith. So even though I'm not Catholic anymore, I think it still gave me like a really good foundation.
Definitely. So when you were younger, you always believed in a God, right? Like, would you talk to God, these kind of things?
Yeah, I definitely did. Like I would always pray, but it wasn't like an everyday thing. It was more so like if I needed something or like when you're younger, that's kind of how it goes. But like it wasn't ever like an everyday thing that I made a part of my everyday life. Like I would go to church on Sundays or if there was ever like a Catholic holiday that we were celebrating, and then that was kind of the extent of it. So it wasn't like constantly like something I was focused on. Like religion, I thought like believing in God was really important, but like following a religion and being outwardly religious wasn't really something that I did growing up.
Mm.
So I think I just like, I don't know, I couldn't really find like a strong connection with the faith. And I feel like a lot in Catholicism is kind of like fear based, whether that's like intentional or not. So I kind of grew up like fearing God, which I think is a good thing. And it's in Islam as well. You're supposed to fear God. But I think there was like an unhealthy level of fear that I kind of viewed God with. So then I kind of pushed away growing up and I was like, I don't need that. Like, I just felt like no matter what I did, I was doing something wrong. So I just felt like it just wasn't the right faith for me.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of people struggle with that. I think in a lot of religions as well, and I think it is to do with just knowing that God is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. He's all merciful. So knowing that sometimes we do make mistakes, but it's okay. Allah's there to forgive you. Okay, so how did you go from that to becoming Muslim?
Yeah. So it was kind of like a multi-year process, I guess. But essentially, like during college, I was kind of just like, at that point, I wasn't really practicing Catholicism, but I was still like feeling like I needed like some type of faith in my life because I was going through a lot of changes. And that's kind of like, at the time of your life when I don't know, for me, I really felt like I needed God at that point in my life because there were so many things going on. I felt kind of like directionless. So I was like looking into other like churches, like non-denominational churches, and like just like regular Christian churches, sorry. But I still like it going from like a traditional Catholic setting to like a non-denominational Christian setting. It was very like different for me. And it felt like I did like a 180 almost. And then I was like, I don't really feel a connection in this either. And at that point, I hadn't even thought like, oh, look into other religions because it was never even, a thought in my mind because I had grown up Catholic. It was like part of my upbringing and my identity. And I never thought that I should like look outside of that religion. But like as I got older, I was eventually introduced to Islam through my now husband. He was like the first Muslim I had ever met because where I live, it's like in the Northeast US in a really like conservative area. It's majority Christian. So I had never met another Muslim until college. And he kind of like inadvertently introduced me to Islam, not necessarily like looking to convert me, like we were just classmates, but it kind of like piqued my interest in the religion. And I kind of was just like looking into it over time, and over a couple years, I eventually like started learning more. And I actually took a trip to Jordan in the Middle East, where I kind of had my first experience like being in a Muslim majority country and hearing the adhan and going to a mosque and meeting different Muslims and Muslim women. So that was like a really impactful experience. And then when I came home from the trip, I was like, okay, like I need to actually be serious about this. Like I want to learn as much as I can. So during that process, I kind of just took some time to learn as much as I could about the religion. And eventually I realized like, wow, this makes like a lot of sense to me. And just like the feeling, praying, like being in sujood, I felt so close to God, and I didn't feel like I should be like afraid of him like I was, growing up. Like it was a very different feeling, even though it's the same God. Like I still believe in the same God as a Muslim that I did when I was a Christian or a Catholic, but my relationship with God, it felt so different. So that was kind of what pushed me to keep looking into Islam, even though, whatever like the media says about it. And my knowledge of Islam before like college was very limited. I didn't know much other than, what the media says about it. So I kind of just had to push through all of that and just like push through, other people's opinions. And eventually I realized like, wow, like this makes a lot of sense to me. And alhamdulillah, I took my shahada after about like a year and a half of researching. So
Alhamdulillah, that's so incredible. Okay, so your family, who I assume are still Catholic, how did they react?
Yeah, so I think my parents, like my sisters, I have sisters as well, and they're not really as religious, but my parents are still like practicing Catholics. I don't think they are to the same extent as when we were younger, but they still very much like consider themselves Catholic. But I was so nervous to tell them, and I know a lot of other Muslim converts are, feel the same way about that, because it's definitely nerve-wracking when you have parents who don't know much about Islam, or maybe you're worried that they won't be accepting. And I was kind of worried that my parents would think I was like disowning, part of my identity or upbringing that they gave me, because they really put a lot of effort into like raising us to be, Catholic. But when I finally like got the courage to tell them about it, they were really understanding and accepting. And they essentially just, kept saying like, we gave you a foundation of God, and that's what matters. You still believe in God, you're a good person, and that's at the end of the day what matters. So they had like a lot of questions, of course, but I think over time, like I included them in my learning process and kind of shared with them things about my own faith that, there's a lot of similarities between the two religions as well. So I kind of focused on that rather than just saying like what divided us. But eventually, they really are very accepting, alhamdulillah. And like when we go over, my mom will like make us like halal meat separately. Like it's really nice. Like they really make an effort to be like accommodating and accepting. So I'm very thankful for that, because I know unfortunately for a lot of reverts, that's not the case. So
Yeah, mashallah, that's actually amazing. That's really good to hear. And I think you hit on something really important, and that's focusing on the similarities, not the differences.
yeah.
Which is, I think, is key, and you can take it into every environment, that saying that you said, because we sometimes do focus too much on the differences, and then we start arguments and fights for no reason. But there are a lot of similarities between us, and I think the main similarity to hold on to is that we're all children of Adam. Like it's that's what I have to remind myself when sometimes things go a bit wrong and I'm like, this person's awful, but you have to remind yourself like this person was created by Allah, like Allah,
Yeah,
who's the greatest, so
exactly.
there's good in everyone, definitely.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Well, thank you so much for sharing with me. I'm so glad to hear it. I didn't know your story before, so this is the first time that I heard it. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was so nice talking with you and getting the opportunity to connect.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Okay, so I'll make sure I tag everything. So make sure you follow her on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Your YouTube is so awesome. You do it with your husband, and it's so, so nice to see your
Oh,
relationship as
thank
well.
you.
And
Thank
I'll
you
make
so much. I
sure.
love your YouTube as well.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so nice. I'll make sure I put everything in the description so it's easy links. And yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you for
Assalamu
having me.
alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
الحمد لله